Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekoneh Hakol Vezocher Chaste Avot V'Imahot Umevi Geula Livnei V'nehem Leman Shemo Ve'ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah Rav lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofech olim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar, michamocha ba'al gevurot, umido melach, Melech meimit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman atah lechayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol.
At the top of page 209, we read responsively, Your might, O God, renews the earth. With dewdrops of light and blessing, let the earth be illumined and blessed.
With dewdrops of joy and delight, let the earth rejoice and sing out.
With dewdrops of life and well-being, let the earth be revived and improved.
With dewdrops of redemption, let the earth be redeemed. Livracha velo liklala.
For blessing and not for curse.
Lechayim velo lemavet.
For life and not death.
Lesova velo leratzon.
For abundance, not want. Amen.
Amen.
We continue on page 210.
Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. We continue on page 214. You have chosen us in love and favor by making us holy through your mitzvot and drawing us close to your service, that through us your great and holy name may become known in all the earth. In your love, Adonai, our God, you have given us feasts of gladness and seasons of joy, this festival of Shavuot, season of our receiving Torah, to unite in worship and recall the Exodus from Egypt. We continue on page 216. Our God and God of our ancestors, be mindful of your people Israel and recall our merit for good and grace, and in loving kindness and compassion for life and peace on this festival of Shavuot.
Zochreinu Adonai Eloheinu bol l'tova. Amen.
This day remember us for well-being. Amen.
Amen. Ufokdeinu vol livracha.
Amen.
Amen.
This day bless us with your nearness. Amen.
Vehoshienu vol lechaim.
Amen.
Amen.
This day help us to a fuller life. Amen.
Amen.
We continue on page 218. together. Bestow upon us the blessing of your holy festivals, and may we so celebrate them as to be worthy of your blessing. Our God and God of our ancestors, make us holy with your mitzvot, and let your Torah be our way of life. May our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. Let your holy festivals remain our heritage, and let us celebrate them with joy, so that all Israel, hallowing your name, may have cause to rejoice. We praise you, Adonai, who sanctifies the house of Israel and the festivals. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. I want to say we should also celebrate it with love and favor. I don't know why. I know they take those out for Shabbat, but still, we should have it with love and favor, even if it's not Shabbat. So may we continue and have that as well. Page 223. Our ancestors acclaimed the God whose handiwork they read in the mysterious heavens above, and in the varied scene of earth below, in the orderly march of days and nights, of seasons and years, and in the checkered fate of humankind. Lift up your eyes, look up, who made these stars? Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. Page 224, we join together in our prayer for peace. Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki atah melech Adon, Lehol HaShalom, Ki atahu melech Adon, Lehol HaShalom. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol eit uvechol shah bishlomecha. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Having prayed for peace in our world, we think of those who face the future not fully whole, those who are in need of healing of mind, of body, and of spirit. We think of them and whisper their names aloud now. We join together in the words of Misha Berach, which can be found on page 247.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Mekor habracha la'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema. The renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We take a few moments now for our own silent prayers.
Say shalom bimromav, huya say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. O say shalom bimromav, huya say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. O say shalom bimromav, huya say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
So we're going to do a text study tonight, and we're going to pass out half and half. On Shavuot, we are celebrating the giving of the 10 Commandments. Oh, why, thank you. We are celebrating the giving of the 10 Commandments, being up on, well, not all of us, Moses up on Mount Sinai to receive Torah, receive the 10 Commandments. There's a big conversation about that. Is it Torah or is it 10 Commandments? Answer is yes, right, as it typically is in Judaism, right, that it is technically the 10 Commandments, but with that, it ends up being all of Torah. What? There was like a look. Robin, did you have something? Yes, the answer is always yes, right? Is it? Which one is it? So that's why when people say, right, 10 Commandments, Torah, it could be interchangeable in this sense. And there's also a really interesting conversation happening among Jewish clergy in Texas right now with the bill that did not get passed about the 10 Commandments in the school, woohoo. Right, what is the 10 Commandments? In Torah, we have two different sets of 10 Commandments. Now, this is the one we put up. We put up the same one over there. But this one is easier. This one and this one are kind of cheating because that uses Roman numerals and this uses Hebrew letters. So that could stand for either of them because it's just counting 1 to 10. This one is a little bit more complicated, but it doesn't get into the part that differs from the Exodus 10 Commandments and the Deuteronomy 10 Commandments because it just gives you the first couple of words. Otherwise, it could be different. Right, so which 10 Commandments really is it? So there's lots of questions around Shavuot, right? Why do we eat dairy on Shavuot? Does anyone know? right? Because it makes no sense and people came up with it. Yes, go ahead, Dimitri. Hilarious. So Dimitri found out that that when Jews figured out that they couldn't get kosher meat, all they had was dairy, so that's what they stuck with. I love that. So I have also heard, there's a million different reasons because it is not in Torah. Everything they talk about with Shavuot has nothing at all to do with dairy. Right? It is one of the pilgrimage festivals. It's a harvest festival. By the way, none of this is on here. I'm just going off the cuff right now. Right? We have the dairy, but that is not at all in Torah. And so the reasons for dairy is that it could be land flowing with milk and honey. So some people's tradition is not only to just eat dairy, but to also have honey. That's why you have the sweet things. So all the sweet pieces that accompany our dairy meal usually. That could be part of it. And then there are also very out there understandings that there's like an acrostic, and with the acrostic, it spells me halav, which means from milk, so that's why you have to eat dairy. That's a stretch. Then there's also the people who like gematria, where they take the Hebrew letters and there's numbers assigned to them, and they add them up. And they said when you add up the letters of halav, which is milk, dairy, that equals 40, and Moses was on Mount Sinai for 40 days. Bam, Shavuot, dairy, okay? So you take your pick of what fits with you, but if you're like me, I love a dairy meal, so I have no complaints. And if you're not like me, I hope you brought your lactate pills with you. All right, you did, perfect, okay. So let's go to those 40 days, and we are in the middle of Exodus, which is that first time we end up seeing the 10 Commandments. We are going up to Mount Sinai, Moses is going up to Mount Sinai, and we, the Israelites, are learning a little bit. So Dimitri, can I call on you? Will you read Exodus 19? In English, if I wasn't clear.
Good, because I don't know Hebrew.
Yeah.
On the third new moon, after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt, on the very day they entered the wilderness of Sinai, having journeyed from
Rephidim,
they entered there in front of the mountain, and Moses...
No, you were right. They entered the wilderness.
Oh, sorry. They entered the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness. Israel encamped there in front of the mountain, and Moses went up to God. The Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, "Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob and declare to the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possessions among all the people. Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel."
Thank you, right? So this is before we get to the 10 Commandments. This is the introduction, right? God's introduction, here's what's happening. So the part that I bolded, you may have guessed that's what I want to talk about, right? Why does God have to say the house of Jacob and children of Israel, right? Couldn't it just be say to the house of Jacob, right? But not only do we have a different verb, right? Say versus declare, but different people. But theoretically, they're the same people. House of Jacob, children of Israel, it's the exact same people. So when Torah has a repeat, it's like there's a flashing neon sign that says, look here, this is important. So why is it important? Michael, I'm going to have you go behind you and go to Daniel and have him read Chizkuni.
All right. Livnei Israel, and explain in detail to the children of Israel. According to Rashi, the word vetakid, which is uncharacteristically spelled with the letter yud in the middle, as derived from the word gid, meaning a tough sinew, as a hint that some of the commandments will be found to present a real challenge for those willing to observe them.
I love this. I don't know if it's like my Reform background, but right, some of these commandments are really hard to swallow. So it's a tough sinew, think meat, right? It's a tough thing to chew, right? These are not going to be easy things for you to take. These commandments aren't meant to be simple. If they were meant to be simple, anybody could do it, and the covenant with God would be open to anybody, right? But the commandments, right, and that covenant with God is really what separates us, and so some of those are a little bit difficult. Some people will also use, again, I'm going off the cuff, but some people will also use this text to say specifically that honor the father and mother, right, or mother and father, depending on which 10 commandments you're looking at, see, one of the differences, can actually be a really hard one for some people. So not all of these commandments are the simplest things to do. If you have a difficult, strained relationship with your parents, it's hard to honor them. And kaved could mean honor or could mean heavy, right? So that it is heavy to honor them as well. Just side notes, things I find interesting. Okay, Tur Ha'arof. Keep going. Carl, will you read that one?
I'm sorry. Another possible way for explaining the difference in meaning between the expression Beit Ya'ara, house of Jacob, Bnei Israel, children of Israel, is that the former referred to the people presented at Mount Sinai, whereas later referred to as yet unborn generations of Jews.
I love this one too, right? That, okay, we can't just say, oh, well, I wasn't there, so I didn't know. I didn't know I was supposed to do that. No, you were there. Whether you knew it or not, your soul was there, right? When we talk about this entire Exodus section, there's an entire piece of all of those who were present this day and those who were not, right? And so a lot of people talk about, well, what does that mean? It's not like, oh, Joe Schmo was in the bathroom and missed it, so who could it be, right? And it actually says, well, it's the people who decide to become Jewish later on. Their soul was there. Even if they weren't right there, their soul was there. So this can also be for that. Somebody who decides to become Jewish, but also those generations that follow. Whatever that is, it doesn't say which generation, right? Torah likes to say to the 4th generation, all of that. This says anybody, right? So you can't say, I wasn't there, it doesn't apply to me, all right? So then we jump back and we say, okay, now we know the difference between the two groups of people. What about the two different verbs, right? The kotomar, thus say, and tagid, which is much stronger, this declare or demand, right? Why are these two separate things? So there's 3 paragraphs, so I'm just gonna have you go right here in the back, and we'll 1, 2, 3, in that back row. Chris, are you good to start?
Okay, or Chaim. When God was about to give the Torah to the people, he intended to make that event one which would bestow the maximum merit on them. He had 2 options. First, to address them with words of love and fondness. The result of such an address would be to implant in the people so much love that they would accept the Torah and qualify for the maximum amount of reward. The disadvantage accompanying such a method of giving the Torah would be the risk that the people would begin to feel so familiar with God that they would lose their sense of awe. This is always the danger, that the Son may take the love of the Father for granted and abuse it on occasion.
All right, so I'm gonna pause before Robin reads, right? Okay, I think it should say grandparents, right? That the grandchild may take the love of the grandparents for granted and abuse it on occasion, and the grandparents say, yeah, sure, whatever you want, right? Gavin, you agree? Yeah, okay. Right, then sometimes there is that relationship. It's like, okay, sure, right? So God says, okay, I want to be loving. I want to be all-encompassing. I want to be here for the Israelites and share with them all of this. But what then if they don't find me amazing and awesome, and they don't find me to be, this really unique being? It's a concern. Robin.
God's second alternative was to address the children of Israel in his capacity as a master, speaking to his servants. The advantage of such an approach was that the Israelites would not dare take any of the commandments lightly. On the other hand, such an approach would make it impossible for them to merit the greatest reward possible, doing mitzvot out of love.
Thank you. Before you go to the 3rd paragraph, Elaine, right? I think that this is really important, right? You don't want to be too harsh, but you still have to make sure that the Israelites understand what they are taking on and what they are agreeing to within this covenant and within taking on this responsibility, right? So, Elaine, keeping all this in mind.
Keeping all
this in mind, God opted for a method which would combine both approaches. When he told Moses, Ko Tomar, he meant that Moses should use the following approach. On the one hand, speak to the people in a friendly, soft-spoken approach, but Tagid, employ also words tough as sinews. Every Jew needs to be aware of this dual relationship at all times.
Right, we see this a lot in high holiday liturgy, right? Avinu Malkeinu, right? Our Father, our King. Here you go, the nice, the Father, and then the King, the strong, the justice and the mercy, right? All of these at play, that God has to find this balance for us to have a relationship with God, to feel that we are loved and being loved, and that we can love back, but also say, wow, God is really amazing, and be in awe, and not only feel like you have to, right? To say that you would not dare take any of the commandments lightly, but that you want to do them, right? There's a difference also that it's being demanded upon you versus wanting to do it. And what is that balance? So I hope that during Shavuot, but always, you think of this duality and what does it mean for you on an individual level, because it means something different for each one of us, of how we connect to all of these commandments, how we connect to God, to our covenant, to our role within this community. Chag Sameach. I'll give you a moment to breathe before there you go. Okay, great. We are going to continue with Aleinu, which is on page 323. And if you are able, I invite you to please rise. Right.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא שם חלקנו לאחד את שמו, וגורלנו להמליך מלכותו. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
You may be seated. Our memorial meditation can be found on page 331. It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and naught but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were, in company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world, and each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one, whose life now ended, brought us closer to the source of life, in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We will not be reading any names tonight, as tomorrow is our Yizkor service, and we will read names tomorrow morning. So we rise together for Kaddish Yatom on page 334. Yitz Gadal v'yitz Kadash Shmei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach cheruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, V'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala u'v'yizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'elam u'mei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei d'kudesha b'richu, Le'ela min kol berachata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen. Our closing song is Livracha. Okay, great. I just want to is Livracha on page 399. It is one of our festival songs. Following this, if you can return your Sidur to the cart, which Corey's going to bring back around, to the cart on your way out.
Livracha velo liklala, lesova velo leratzon, livracha velo liklala. Lechaim velo lemavet, Lechaim, lechaim velo lemavet, lechaim, lechaim, livracha velo liklala, lesova velo lerazon, livracha velo liklala.
Chag Sameach, and a big Yasher Koach, and thank you to Michael Seidel for leading with me this evening. Chag Sameach.